Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're making a maple bundt cake. This cake is so good. I cannot tell you how much of this cake I've eaten. I am embarrassed to tell you how much of this cake I've eaten.
I just ate a piece of this cake. I can vouch for the fact that it is delicious.
It is so good. Just a good cake. So this is a maple bundt cake, and it really is maple. It's got maple syrup in the cake itself and maple syrup in the icing, and it's good. It's really good. So I'm going to give you the ingredients, and then we'll go over the instructions on how to make it. So first of all, you want to preheat your oven to 350, and you want to grease really, really well and flour your bundt pan really, really well, because there's nothing worse than a stuck cake, which you can still eat. I mean, you know. Okay, for the cake, you need 1 cup of butter softened, a half cup of brown sugar, 3 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1 cup of real maple syrup. You can also add a half teaspoon of maple flavoring or maple lean if you like even more maple flavor, but you do not have to. 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a half teaspoon of salt, and a half cup of sour cream. I used Daisy Light sour cream. Okay, here we go. We have our butter soft. We're going to cream our 1 cup of butter and half cup of brown sugar really well. I did not use a hand mixer. I used a wooden spoon to do this. I actually prefer using a wooden spoon to mix most cake batters and cookie batters and bread. I occasionally use my mixer, but I don't know. I just prefer using a spoon. You can use a mixer if you'd like, but I prefer the spoon. I lie to myself and say that I'm getting the extra exercise from stirring. Burn calories so I can eat more cake. That's what it is. So
it comes out even.
Yeah,
you mix it with a spoon.
Yeah, what do they call that when when your carbon footprint? This is my
the net zero.
This is my net zero cake footprint. I need that on a shirt.
It's your cake print.
I stir my cakes by hand so I can maintain a net zero cake print. Don't anybody steal my shirt idea.
That'll be the next shirt. Well, this isn't coming out for a couple weeks. We got time.
We have time. Okay.
By the time this comes out, we will at least have done an iron-on t-shirt.
Okay, so now you're going to add your eggs one at a time. So crack an egg, drop it in, beat that, crack the next egg, drop it in, beat it, and beat it really well. Eggs one at a time. Then you're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1 cup of maple syrup. Mix well. I used Paul Farms maple syrup, and it is from Potter County, Pennsylvania. It is pure Pennsylvania maple syrup, and it is liquid gold. It's delicious. It smells so good. You open up the bottle. Oh, it smells so good. Like I said, if you want to use some maple flavoring, you can use a half teaspoon of maple flavoring in addition to the vanilla, but you do not have to. Now for dry ingredients, once you have all these wet ingredients all mixed up, you're going to take your 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, half teaspoon of salt, and you're going to blend those together in a separate bowl. Then you're going to dump them into your wet ingredients and mix well until fully incorporated. Then you're going to add your half cup of sour cream and again mix well until fully incorporated. Scrape the sides of the bowl, get yourself a nice rubber scraper and clean your spoon off and clean your sides of your bowl and beat it up again. Get it nice and good. And then pour your batter evenly into your greased and floured bundt pan. The batter for this is rather dense. So I just turned the pan so that I could kind of evenly put the batter in, and then I took my rubber scraper and leveled it off in the pan. and then just put it into the oven. Bake 35 to 40 minutes. I think mine took every bit of 40 minutes to finish baking. Test with a toothpick. Make sure it's done. And then take the pan out and cool it for 15 minutes on your cooling rack. Once it's set for 15 minutes, you can take a plastic knife, and not a steel knife, a plastic knife, and slide it very carefully down and around your cake to make sure the edges are loose on the outside and then around the middle. And then turn it over onto your cooling rack and let the cake drop out. Now you want it to cool completely, because this cake has a layer of icing that goes on the top. The icing for this, you want it to like sag over the edges of the cake. It's not going to be frosted. When you put it on, it's going to be able to move down the cake a little bit. So you don't want it to be a super firm icing, but you want it to be a reasonably firm icing that when you pick your spoon up, it will plop off of your spoon into the bowl. So here's the icing recipe. And this should make about 1.5 cups of icing. You need 1/4 cup of butter softened, 2 to 3 cups of powdered sugar, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/2 teaspoon of maple flavoring if desired. I used Maybelline in the frosting to go along with it to make it, I wanted to make it a little more mapley than it was, but you don't have to use Maybelline if you don't want to. And then 2 teaspoons of milk. So you're going to take your butter and beat your flavorings. Take the softened butter, the maple syrup, the vanilla, and if desired, the maple flavoring, and mix that into your butter real good. And then start adding your powdered sugar a little bit at a time. Little bit of powdered sugar, and when it starts to get stiff, put a little bit of milk in. Powdered sugar, milk, whatever. Keep beating until you have 2 cups of powdered sugar incorporated, and then see how much icing it looks like you're going to have there. And you can always add a little bit more powdered sugar, a little bit more milk. But like I said, you want the consistency to kind of be like when you pick it up on a spoon, that it doesn't pour off, but it will slowly drop off of the spoon. Once that's done, you can set it aside and cover it until your cake is cold. Don't put the icing in the refrigerator because we don't want it to get hard. Just leave it at room temperature until your cake is cool, okay? When your cake is cool, put it on a plate. You can put it on a nice looking plate or a dinner plate like I did. And then you very carefully drop spoonfuls of icing around the top of the cake and start to blend them together, and just let the icing drizzle down the sides. It'll slowly run. Probably won't run the whole way down, but just let it run down and then let it sit to set up. And then you can slice it and eat it. And it is such a good cake. It's such a good cake. It tastes like a donut. I mean, it's so good. It's just such a good cake. I was kind of wondering, I had been looking for a recipe for a maple cake that used maple syrup for a long time. And I had this recipe in my recipe folder and I forgot all about it. So I was looking at it and I said, you know what, I'm going to make that and see how that is. And boy, it is so good and so simple to make. Very simple recipe for a very good cake. So I would say would be a great cake to take to like a fall party or event. It travels well. It's very good. It stays very nice and moist. Just a good cake. Actually, if you make it to take somewhere, make 2 because you're going to want to eat like half of it. So that's how good it is.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Twitter at Mobile Mary Mac and Mary Mac Podcast, and on our website, marymacpodcast.com. You can also see us in person at Standing Chimney, Saturday, August 7th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can find more information about that on facebook.com/Standing Chimney.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.